'tis the season of strikes. We have an update finally on the Air Canada strike. We also know that newcomers to Canada are somewhat destroying this country, as are liberal Canadians. They are also destroying this country equally or greater. I don't know. That's up for debate. Mark Carney is finally helping out Canadian farmers, but in a way that's not sustainable in the long run. There's a lot to take a look at in this video. I do really hope you stick around for the full thing. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does tremendously help grow the channel. Let's get right into this. Starting off with Mark Carney and the Liberal government's reaction to the Chinese 75-78% tariffs on our Canadian farming industry, which is absolutely decimating all of Saskatchewan. So right here in an update, you have Canadian canola producers have been hit hard by Chinese tariffs. That was in a retaliatory response to the 100% tariffs that Canada has put on Chinese electric vehicles. So we are stepping in with major investments to help them, as well as other agriculture industries, to diversify their markets and products for a stronger, more resilient future. Carney has pledged $370 million in incentives for canola sectors in wake of Chinese tariffs. Now, there's a few different ways to look at this. One is, of course, when our own industries are being attacked, then we should be trying to bail them out, right? Because it's like nothing that the farmers can do. It's literally our federal government implementing certain things on China, and China specifically attacking certain provincial sectors. So it's a good thing, right? That we are basically helping each other out, because we're only as good as our weakest link. And if we're being dragged down with our farming sector because they're being attacked by China, then where does that leave the rest of the country? That is one way to look at it, as this is a good thing, I guess, that, you know, it'd be really unfortunate for Canada, for our farming industry to be decimated. The other way to look at it as, why are we being attacked? Why are we being decimated by China or even America? And the root cause of that is the Liberals. The Liberals are not working properly with other countries. They're trying to stick it to other countries for either political gain, which would be what's happening right now with the whole elbows up thing. That's how Mark Carney got elected, was, hey, they're attacking us. Not because of anything we've done, of course not, but they're attacking us. So vote for us and we're going to stand up to them, whoever them or they actually are. And yeah, it turns out that the problem of the root cause is the Liberals. But I mean, that's just how I view it. There's probably a lot of you that are also watching this that view it with me in that similar lens. But again, let me know where you guys stand on that, because it's a problem. And speaking of problems, this is a perfect segue into newcomers, who are a bit of a problem. This right here was, I think, from Bowmanville, Ontario. Look at this. So there's a salmon run in Ontario, and we have people that are just not abiding by our fisheries laws, grabbing the salmon. And yeah, I mean, you know how it goes. You know how it goes, right? And that's not the only instance. There's also, of course, not too far from Bowmanville, you've got Brampton, where truckers are doing these illegal U-turns on the highways, as you're about to see right here. Just boom, there you go. Almost causes an accident. So many fatalities are caused on the road from this type of behavior, and it's usually newcomers that are not that skilled in driving in this particular instance that end up causing that. But again, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that particular topic. And then we got to take a look here at François-Philippe Champagne, this liberal little chihuahua who has a bit of a short-circuiting problem, because at a recent liberal Mark Carney event, you had Project 2025. The mastermind behind it was invited to speak, who's like a MAGA guy. So a MAGA guy from America came to speak at a Carney event. It's weird. It's very weird, but that's Canada. Let's have a look.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we invite different guests to come to our event. We wanted to hear a different perspective. When you invite international guests, sometimes, scheduling issues, things change. Kevin Rudd will be with us today. And I think, these things happen. But the reality is that we're going to have, today it's a set of discussion, a lot around the economy and a lot about building homes and at the same time looking at our trading relationships.
Mr. Roberts,
I'll go there and I'll go to you. So I'll go to her and then I'll come to you.
Were you comfortable if Mr. Roberts had arrived? Were you comfortable hearing from him and listening to what he had to say?
It's not about. It's when you have sessions, you want to hear a different perspective. This is a perspective, and I think to hear from someone who provide a perspective about his view and how things, how they would want to see things. I think that's a perspective that.
So let me get this straight. The Liberals openly attacked Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives by calling him Maple MAGA, which is factually incorrect. Pierre Poilievre is quite literally nothing like Trump. That's actually a lot of criticism that comes from the conservative supporters in the country is stop just pretending to toe the line, actually cross that line and be a true conservative. But I digress on that matter. Liberals attack conservatives, attack Pierre, your MAGA politics, your Maple MAGA, you're bringing American-style politics into Canada. And now Liberals are brushing shoulders with MAGA people. It's weird. This is the world that we live in Canada, is the Liberals attack you for something, and then they come out not too later doing the thing in which they attacked you on. Yeah, I can't make sense of it, but that's Canada. That's Canadian politics. But let's zoom out of Canada and let's focus in on Alberta, because Danielle Smith is facing, well, a little bit of protests here. We're back on track, says Danielle Smith, after she's asked about the teachers' return to the negotiating table. Premier Smith says she hears the province's teachers loud and clear and wants to find a fair way to make a deal. Speaking on her Saturday morning radio show, Your Province, Your Premier, Danielle Smith insisted that the province is addressing both wages and as well as classroom complexity and class sizes. In terms of salary, she said the province is offering a 3% a year for 4 years raise, which she insisted is both competitive and a number of the province can afford. I would just ask taxpayers, are they seeing the same kind of pay increase? She said, we're trying to give fair wage increase, but also ones that we can afford and are consistent with what we are seeing in the broader market. So hopefully that strike can be resolved. Here's Danielle Smith at a recent press conference. Let's have a look.
We'll be announcing some policies next week to address the very serious crisis of youth unemployment. Normally, youth unemployment, it's a few percentage points above the general unemployment rate. Right now, it's at 17%. It should be more around 11 or 12%. There's always reasons, because kids are students and that sort of thing. There's always a reason why it's slightly higher, but it is massively higher. So we know that there has to be a connection between these things, because we're hearing the stories of the kids who put out dozens of resumes and don't get a call back. And we're seeing Michelle Rempel do some great work where she is showing how fast food jobs, which used to be the very first place a kid would get their first job, are preferring to hire temporary foreign workers rather than hire locally. So it's out of balance. We know that agriculture is an area that needs to be exempted, and those are true seasonal workers. And many of those are also high-skilled labor and higher-paid laborers. It really is the low-income worker that is competing with kids for their first job. That's what we've got to get a rein on. So I'm glad to see that Pierre Poilievre is pushing the envelope. I think we've got to rein that in.
And then in other news, we got to take a look at what's going on with Air Canada, because, well, Air Canada is obviously, or has been, in this tremendous strike with the union workers saying, hey, we're not going to work for free. And the company Air Canada is going, what? We didn't plan for this. And the government's going, haha, get back to work or else. So we've been in this limbo for the last couple of weeks, and we finally have an update, and it's a no deal. Bit of a shocker there. Let's have a look.
Air Canada's flight attendants have just finished voting on whether to ratify the tentative deal that ended last month's paralyzing strike. The results of the vote are now in, and the answer is a resounding no. But that doesn't mean flights are grounded again, at least not yet. Nathaniel Dove joins us now from Pearson International Airport with the latest. Nate.
Yeah, Jeff, the window for the Air Canada flight attendants to vote closed Saturday afternoon, and the results show by an overwhelming margin that the union members rejected the company's latest offer. With nearly 95% of the 10,000 members taking part, they almost all voted against the offer. Not even 1% thought it was acceptable. This comes after the members rejected Air Canada's previous proposal and defied a federal back-to-work order. One of the main issues is pay, how much and when it starts. Flight attendants aren't paid until the plane takes off. Air Canada's most recent proposal would have paid attendants on a narrow-body plane on the ground for 1 hour at half their normal rate. That pay would rise over several years. On wider-body craft, they get paid for an hour, 10 minutes. The offer would also boost salaries between 8 and 12% in the first year. McGill University professor Barry Idlin says flight attendants used to be paid well in the air to offset not being paid for their work on the ground. He says that pay hasn't kept up with fewer staff at airports and rising costs of living.
Basically, you have a situation now where the unpaid ground time has expanded while the hourly wage in the air has contracted.
Before results were known, passengers told Global News they support the attendance.
They should be paid for the time that they're working and at the airport and prepping the planes and that sort of stuff.
I wouldn't want them to not have any pay while they're working, so I mean that's not fair.
Now, the results of this rejection should be different from the one in August. That's because Air Canada and CUPE previously agreed that no matter what the outcome, there would be no strike and no lockout. That means planes will keep flying. The parties.
So that's an interesting way to strike. Like, hey, we're going to keep working, even though we are not receiving what the wages that we want, and we're still on strike, but not an official strike. Anyways, I hope a resolution for this can come sooner than later. Of course, it's super unethical what's happening with the flight attendants in this country, not just with Air Canada. Like our flight industry, every industry in this country is like completely bass backwards. Doesn't make any sense. But specifically focusing right now on the topic at hand, which is the flight attendants, it is absolutely out of control. I mean, they work so much hours for absolutely free. Like when the plane docks, it lands rather, and they extend the accordion kind of tunnel from the plane to the airport, and they're helping you unload your bags. They're off the clock. So every single time they help with your luggage, they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. So keep that into consideration next time you fly. And then we got to take a look here at this panel, because it's kind of weird where Vashi and Marco Mendicino and a couple other people are talking on the panel. Let's just have a look.
At all to describe a budget. Like my history with politicians is that they run from that word no matter what party they're in, because Canadians get worried about what it means for them. Do you think it was deliberate, a mistake, and what do you think it signifies?
Well, personally, I was thrilled to hear him use the word. It's about time. The civil service has grown by 100,000 people on Justin Trudeau's watch. If he takes out 15%, which is what they're talking about for each ministry, that still only gets us down to the level where after Justin Trudeau had been Prime Minister for 5 years. So we're still talking 2020 numbers in terms of the growth of the civil service. So I think it's great that he's talking about doing that, and not an easy task, but you know, I think what he's saying to Canadians is, look, as Francois-Philippe Champagne said, we understand that you guys are having a tough time. We understand that Canadians are trying to tighten their own belts. Government is going to do the same thing, and they're going to stop the growth, and they're going to try and contain the civil service. And I think it's absolutely the right message for Canadians.
Let me know down in the comments if you guys agree with that or not. That was kind of interesting to see that unfold in real time. But that's not the only interview that we have to take a look at. Melanie Joly, Justin Trudeau's mistress, or I guess ex-mistress, or whatever the hell they were once upon a time, sits down one-on-one with Vashi to do, well, an interesting interview. We're not going to take that long of a look, but let's have a look nonetheless.
Start off on one aspect of the announcement as it relates to one of the industries you oversee as Minister of Industry, the auto sector. On June 17th, your cabinet colleague, the Minister of Environment, said the following about your government's EV mandate. Quote, it's been in place since 2023. I don't see why the Conservatives believe we need to change it in the face of what we're facing with the U.S. tariffs on the auto sector, or on the auto industry, pardon me. Now, Trump's tariffs on the auto sector, the same ones that are in place today, were in place then. What changed, and why did it take your government so long?
So we've been working as a team over the summer to make sure that we are able to be there for our auto industry. Clearly, what is going on in the auto industry is that obviously the 25% tariffs against from the U.S. coming against the auto sector is really difficult to bear, difficult to deal with. And so we needed to be pragmatic. We need to make sure that we are there for our auto sector while continuing to have very ambitious climate change goals, so making sure that we reduce emission. And that's why we're launching a 60-day period consultation. That's a very short period of consultation, because we want to be able also to either do more EVs in Canada or also bring more affordable EVs from different countries, including Europe, South Korea, and Japan.
Why, though, with respect, did it take all this time for your government to embody that level of pragmatism? Those tariffs came into effect back in April. At the end of May, May 26th, I believe, 5 of the biggest automakers in Canada urged the Prime Minister to scrap the mandate because at that very moment they conveyed to him it was, quote, inflicting serious damage across the country. Did you just not want to give the Conservatives a win to the disadvantage of the auto sector you oversee?
Oh, I think you're overthinking it, Vashi, because when you look at it, at the end of Q4 of last year, 19% of new cars being sold in Canada were EVs, and then eventually it dropped to 8%, including because Canada decided to let go its subsidies. And
the craziest thing about all this is they're trying to force EVs. Not they're trying; they are actually trying. Canada is actually in a state of trying to force EVs, hence the EV mandates, the no emissions target by 2050 or 2040, whatever the hell that is. I mean, they're actually trying to force it. Yet the most affordable EVs in the entire world come from China. And what does Canada do? Instead of embracing the electric vehicle change, which we know that EVs are quite expensive, which is part of the reason why a lot of people are having a difficult time purchasing an EV, not to mention the range and all the other factors and cold weather. You know, it's questionable in a lot of other aspects. But instead of offering Canadians like, you know, affordable electric vehicles, the government says, yeah, you know, those affordable electric vehicles made in China, 100% tariffs. Like, it's just insane. It's like you're sinking in a life, you're sinking off of a ship. And hey, we need to help that person, and we've got some buoys, but no, we don't want to save them with buoys. You know, we got to wait for something else. Like, either you're going to do it or you're not. And Canada is just a weird gaslighting, over politicized country. It's disgusting.
Now we're looking at bringing them back. So based on that, we just needed to act. And the budget is coming, and we'll be able to make decisions in the context of the budget. And that's up to the Minister of Finance to take his decisions. But meanwhile, the sector is really affected. And forget the Conservative rhetoric that it's all about EVs. No, it's about tariffs. It's about the fact that the U.S. is putting tariffs on our auto sector, and that's affecting jobs in Cambridge, in Alliston, in Brampton, in Windsor. And so we're not dealing with ideology, we're dealing with a real reality, and we're acting now.
Yeah, with respect, I would push back on the idea that I'm overthinking it. I'm presenting what the Conservatives have been saying for a long time, and you responded. But it's what I said to you initially was what the auto sector had conveyed at the end of May, which is that they were in a crisis at this moment, that the mandate that you had in place was inflicting serious damage. Like, that's a direct quote from a letter that they sent and that they conveyed to the Prime Minister. Why do you need another 60 days to decide whether to get rid of this thing when you know how it's impacting the sector?
Well, first, we paused the EV mandates for the summer, for this year, for 2026. And also, Quebec and BC have done so as well, and so we want to work with them. We want to harmonize also our approach, and the Minister of the Environment is working on this. Meanwhile, I'm here to talk to you about also what we're doing for the sectors that are much more affected in light of the fact that the trade disruptions will continue. The U.S. has decided that tariffs would be there in the long run. They've imposed the highest tariffs since the Great Depression, and so there's not only disruptions on the trade front, but I must say there's a real rupture with the free trade world that we were living in until recently. And so we're acting now, yes, on the auto sector, and you're talking to me about EVs, which is really important, but we're looking at a vast sector of the economy, auto, but also we're looking at other sectors, including lumber, steel, aluminum, and other sectors that could be facing threats from the American
such a bullshit answer.
Government, and so that's why we're acting.
And certainly,
you can tell. Maybe I'm looking into this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Vashi is not having anything. She's not having anything to do with this conversation. I mean, she's pushing back now in a way that we we deserve this. We deserve our media to push back against politicians in the way that Vashi just kind of did. She said, hey, to be fair, though, Minister, you're talking about something that you criticized the Conservatives on in the past, and now you're adopting the policies and you're saying that we're regurgitating the same things the Conservatives did when you were just against it not too long ago. It's weird that we allow our liberals to gaslight us like this. And Vashi is the first reporter on the mainstream media to really kind of push back against this and to start to wake up. I don't know if it's a charade. I don't know if it's here to stick, but I like this.
Have questions about your proposed help for those sectors, as well as in particular the Buy Canada policy, because I think you'll have a big hand in that. I do just want to make sure that I understand on behalf of Canadians, though, when you talk about how those mandates are part of a climate plan, the Prime Minister left open the door today outside of the industrial carbon price to, it sounded to me that was the only thing he was unequivocal about, would stick around as part of the climate policy. He opened the door to other changes to climate policy. Can you be unequivocal with Canadians watching right now? Will you maintain the targets that the previous Trudeau government had, the emissions reductions targets that are in place?
Well, the emission reduction tariffs for 2050 of being net zero by 2050, clearly.
But there are ones for 2030, 2035 as well. Will those also?
And I'm convinced the Minister of the Environment, which I'm convinced will make her available to answer your question, could be there to go much more into the specific details. What I can tell you, though, is that you've seen the jobs numbers this morning. This is the reality in which Canadians watching us right now are living in. There is unpredictability, which drives a lot of pause by industry leaders, by business owners, to make investments in their own companies, to hire people, to develop new products. And so while all this is happening, we have to use the government's role is to make sure that we indeed buy more Canadian, that we indeed have a defense industrial strategy, that we use the strength of procurement to really offer contracts rather than subsidies to companies in order for them to be able to predict what they can do within their own business for the next 3 to 5 years, sometimes 10 years. And then they can invest, they can hire, they can grow their footprint, and then they can have more suppliers, and their suppliers, other small and medium-sized companies, can then do the same thing, and that's how we'll create growth. Because
okay, I'm sorry, I've just had enough of this, right? I feel like it's more productive to go and smash your head on a wall, which is you're guaranteed to be dumber after you do that. And that's more productive than listening to these liberals try and justify electric vehicle suppression in China. Like, if you're that focused on the climate change aspect, you're that focused on the whole world or Canada being able to contribute to a green energy utopia, but you're still tariffing the #1 car manufacturer for electric vehicles, which can provide the most affordable options, which I know a lot of viewers are against EVs. I get it, right? We all have our flavor of cars, but if electric vehicles weren't mandated, right? If it wasn't like, hey, Canada, you got like 10 more or 15 more years to buy gas and then it won't be an option anymore. If it wasn't mandated, do you think that maybe you'd have a bit of a different approach to it? Like EVs aren't, like, they're kind of cool tech, right? They're kind of cool. If you've never driven one, I would encourage you to. But the affordability aspect of it is just, it's crazy. It's so much more expensive than gas and diesel. And yeah, I understand the cold aspect when you're in northern parts of Canada or just regular parts of Canada that isn't the, you know, west coast, the southern west coast of the country. You're dealing with a lot of snow, a lot of cold, and that affects the battery and the range, and they don't work where you live. I get it. I've heard it all. But if Canada is really pushing EVs, then why are they blocking the cheapest and most affordable EVs in the entire world? It doesn't make any sense. And try to justify it in these long-winded, weird political answers with her flashcards. It's freaking sketchy, man. It's sketchy. That's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, slap a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in another one. Bye for now.